Welcome to Dobby's Repairs. I'm Dobby the Fixing Elf. In this video I'll show you how to replace the timing belt and water pump on this Mk1 Citroen C4 Grand Picasso with a 1.6 diesel engine. It's recommended to change the timing belt every 10 years or every 100,000 miles, depending what comes first. It may seem like quite a daunting job, but it's actually fairly straightforward. By the end of this video I'll show you all the tips and tricks to get it done as smoothly as possible, so grab your tools and let's get fixing. To begin with, we've got the bonnet open, as you can see. We're going to be working this area here down by the engine mount. We're going to be actually removing this engine mount later in the video. And yes, that's all the area we're going to be working. I've already got the wheel off, as you can see, and I've got the car jacked up on an axle stance to keep it nice and safe. And we're going to be removing this wheel well cover now. It's held in by a few push pins and a couple of T20 screws. I'll show you those in a minute. But yeah, just push pins around the edge. We need to pop them out. I'll show you how to do that. You can either use a flat-headed screwdriver like I am here, or my favourite tool to do it with is a tack lifter, which I've done a video on before, which is a really handy little tool and really inexpensive. But yeah, once you fight it off out the window there, you just basically pull the centre pin out and then they pop out nice and easily. There we are. And this one should come out now. It's quite dirty under here. Probably should have washed it first, but you know. That's the first one out. Now we're going to get the second one out. This time we need a tack lifter, which makes it a lot quicker and a lot easier. And now we're going to get to the next one, which is just down the back here. Yours may have more and yours may also be screwed in. It does depend on the model. There's a bit slight variation between them. And there's the last one down here. Sometimes this can be a T30 screw, but this is just a push pin for me. Now we'll get the two T20s out. The one here, this one's stuck in a little holder, so it'll be fine. Once you just whiz out, so it's loose like that, you'll be fine. And then this other T20 just over here. And you can do this by just peeling back the wheel arch from the front corner here, but I find taking out gives you a lot more access and just makes the whole job a lot easier. Just double check this one, make sure it's loose. There we go. And now that one's coming out. We can start by removing the wheel well now. And the wheel well cover comes out fairly easily once you get this last push pin out that I didn't spot until I'd taken it out. So there we are, just pop it out and pull it out. Make sure you keep these safe, they can break, so if you can get replacements before you start. And yeah, now we're going to pull the wheel out. I've just pulled it out slightly. And now we can pull it out the rest of the way. Just unhook it. Just be careful of the ABS sensor wire at the back corner there. And this will give us access to the crank pulley and the lower part of the engine. We've actually an 80mm crank pulley bolt there, and we'll be doing that after we take off the alternator belt or auxiliary belt. But first, while we're under the car, I'm just going to drain the coolant out. So I'm just going to remove the lower radiator hose and let the coolant come out. I've also got a catch pan underneath it. And make sure you catch all this fluid. You don't want to get anywhere. It is very dangerous stuff and can cause lots of damage. Make sure you dispose of it responsibly. And yeah, just going to pull this radiator hose off. You can do it without pulling off this radiator hose, but I find it gets really messy and you're going to lose a lot of fluid when you take the water pump out later on. You're still going to lose a lot now, but this just makes it slightly less messy further down the line. So we're going to pull it out, wiggle it off, and let all the coolant flow out. As you can see, it's not in the best condition, this coolant. It's gone a bit of an orangey colour and it should be more pinky red. And you can let it drain out. Once it's all drained out, we're going to put the radiator hose back on and secure it down so we don't forget to do it later. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Just grab it and squeeze the hose clamp. I'm using a pair of pliers for this. You can use hose clamp pliers. I lent mine out to someone, so I didn't have them on hand, so I had to use a pair of long nail pliers like this. There you go, that's all back on, nice and secure. Try and get it back into a similar position to how you removed it, that way it doesn't leak at all, which is always quite nice. And we'll check it for leaks later on. Now we're going to remove the alternator tensioner. We'll take the tensioner off the alternator belt. So there's a 16mm here, as you can just see. And we're going to use a 16mm on it. And we're going to put it down. You can see this one's a bit broken, so I will be replacing this alternator tensioner. And yeah, just pull it up. And then we just slide in a 3mm Allen key here, just to hold it shut. You can also use a drill bit for this, but I found the 3mm Allen key works really well. It gives you a nice grip when you need to remove it. Now we're going to pull the alternator bout off. Just take it off the alternator over at the top here, and it will slide off quite simply. Quite an easy bout to remove, and then it will just drop out down the bottom. And that's the alternator bout removed. Fairly straightforward on this. Now we're going to remove the crank pulley. This is an 18mm. I'm just using a windy gun here. This is a little draper impact gun. Just whips it off nice and easily. And then we're going to remove the crank pulley itself and check it for damage. This one's in relatively good nick. If yours has got any cracks, I recommend replacing it. And it's held on by a key, so as you can see, this is in really quite good nick. You've got a little key on the back there. I'll just show you that in a second. But yeah, as you can see, there's the key, and on the crank pulley shaft, you can see it's got a little key there, and that's where it sits, so keeps it nice and secure, so you can't misalign it, which is really helpful. And there we go. Just going to put the bolt back in because we're going to need it back in later on. Just hand tighten is fine. Just run it down by hand, and then we'll just be using that later on, as I said. And now we're going to remove the 3 10mm bolts that hold the alternator bout tensioner on, or auxiliary bout tensioner, depending on what you want to call it. Drive bout tensioner is also called. Many names, again these are 10mm. So yeah, just quickly break them loose. So there's one here, there's one slightly here, as you can see. And the third one, it likes to hide just down behind this engine mount, as you can see in just a second. My little arrow will pop it up, and I'm just going down to it now. Yeah, just work these out, break them all loose first. You're not going to be able to get the third one out with the clearance you have, so you just need to run it out, and then we'll just run it out by hand the rest of the way, as you can see me doing here. And once we've got all 3 bolts out, we will pull it out, and as you can see, the third bolt is still attached to the end there. And I'll give you a better look at how they line up, as you can see. So there's the 3 bolts, and there's the 3mm Allen holding it in place. As you can see the damage out, we will be replacing this tensioner. Now we're going to start removing the 7mm bolts on the upper timing belt cover. There's a few more on here, but this is just a start, so we'll just run them out quickly and get them all out of the way. I will show you these locations once I get the cover off completely. Yeah, once we do that, we also got to remove some T25 bolts, so they just need to be broken loose, and we'll run them out. These hold on a little bracket that holds this cable on, as you can see. And yeah, just break it loose. And I'll speed things up a bit now, just so you haven't got to sit through me fighting these. It can be quite awkward. There's not a lot of clearance with the pipes in the way. You can take them off, but then it's more hassle, so you leave them in place. It's the best option, in my opinion. And you'll just run these out. And now we've got these removed. We'll get them out of the way, and we can pull this bracket loose and get more access to more of the timing cover. But before we do that, we're going to just support the engine with a jack and a bit of wood just to keep it all nicely secure, because we're going to remove the engine mount net. So just put that in and keep it nicely supported. And now we're going to remove these E16 fasteners. In hindsight, I would have removed the T50 Torx on the other side first, but I'm going to buzz these out. There'll be a full list of all the tools I use in the description down below, so check them out if you want to see any of the tools I use. And we can do the back ones now. Again, they buzz out really quite nice and easily. And then there's a lot more to go. Just put the extension on there and buzz it out. You can do all this by hand as well. I'm just using the tools that I've got them to hand. And now I'm going to remove the 3 T50 fasteners of the engine mount to the engine itself. This to the other part of the engine mount. And yeah, just buzz them out. Again, I'm using a slightly bigger impact for these because these are slightly tougher. But as I said, you can do all of this by hand as well. The impact just makes it a bit easier. So you can see I'm doing this one by hand. You get a nice firm grip of it. And break it loose. They are fairly tight, but you can see it starts to move. The impact does make it a lot quicker and easier, but you can see you can do it by hand. To get this pipe out of the way, just lift it out and pop it off. This pipe just goes to your fuel filter and to your fuel return line. And if you want to get them out of the way, I'll just speed things up a bit so you haven't got to see me fight all the way through this. Not as slow as speed it actually takes. This whole job takes a few hours to do, to make sure you allow yourself plenty of time. And just go steady and slow and take your time and you'll get it all done in the end. If you do find this video helpful, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you're new. And any questions or comments, let me know in the comments down below and I'll do my best to answer any of the questions you have. And yeah, I'll just cut this, we'll just work out. I'm going to use my electric ratchet to speed things up. And these things make short work of it, especially once they're broken loose. And that's the last one coming out now, and we'll be able to remove this engine mount. Well, this top part of the engine mount, shall I say. There we go. Now with the upper part of the engine mount removed, as you can see here, we're going to start working on the lower part of this engine mount, which is held in by 4 16mm bolts that are here. We can't actually remove this just yet. We need to finish removing the upper engine mount cover, but it's easier to break these loose now. I'm going to break them all loose. So there's 4 of them. There we go, that's the second one done. And like I said, we'll put through this quickly and get these nice and loose. And then we'll start working on the upper engine mount cover. They can be quite stubborn, they are quite tight for space. You can lift the engine up a bit as well to give you a bit more space. Now you've got it off the engine mount. Just break them nice, they're fairly tight as you can see. The engine doesn't want to move now, so just be careful, just hold it and support it like that. We're going to remove this last couple of 7mm, so there's one here. So now we're going to remove this middle one, as you can see. It comes out fairly easily. There's one more hidden right at the back there that we just need to remove that I didn't realise was there. So once we work this one out by hand, obviously you can use your electric ratchet here too, that will speed things up. That one's out now. You're going to finish running it out by hand. There we go. And now it's removed. There should be one more to remove, just at the back here. I'll try to pull it off, as you can see it's still stuck. Just be careful, you don't want to damage anything. You're also going to remove the cables off the top here, because they do hold it in as well. And just slide off. Now we remove that bracket, as you can see. And now we're going to get to this last 7mm at the back here. You can see it easier with the thing. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a very good camera angle on this, so I apologise about the angles. I'm trying my best, and you can just speed things up. Just make it nice and simple, and get it out. Then we'll be able to remove this other cover, and it will give us a bit more access to things. So there we go, the upper cover should now be loose, and be able to be removed. Once we get the screws just finally out, they are a bit longer than you expect, these little 7mm. There we go, out that comes, and that gives access to the top of the timing cover. And you can see there's the camshaft pulley. Now I'm going to finish off removing these last 16mm. Just get them all out of the way. Again, the lower two you can't get out, the upper two you can remove, but you have to leave the lower two in and just pull out the whole bracket with them. And you just speed things up again, because again this is quite tricky. As I said, you can adjust the height of the engine to make it slightly easier. Now you've got the engine mount off, you can go up and down, which is very handy. We'll be doing that a bit later on. Especially useful for when you have to remove the water pump and refit the water pump. You can drop it down. But for now we're just going to work these out by hand and just finish off by hand because there's not enough clearance for the ratchet. There you go, as you can see the bracket's coming loose now. I believe it's called the engine mount bracket, but I'm not entirely sure, but it needs to come out because it's in the way. You can also see that I removed the cap off the coolant reservoir as well, just out when I was draining the fluid, just to make things a bit easier. I should mention that earlier. Yeah, just run it off and it should be fine. We're almost done now. There we go. Just wiggle it up. It is held on by a couple of metal tabs as well, so it can be a bit corroded on sometimes. There we go. It's coming out nice and simply. There we are. You see there's a few little guide pin holes there. Now we're going to remove the 7mm down below. We'll start first. We're going to start by removing these two 10mm. Or at least there's one 10mm first, which we don't need to remove till later on, but I started, so I'll finish off. And this just holds a little belt guide on, but you can't remove to get the cover off. So So it's a bit pointless removing it now. I'll wait until later. I'm also going to loosen off this 7mm here. A couple more 7mm in various locations that we're going to run out. They come out fairly simply. I will show you where all these bolts are when I get the cover off. It's a little bit easier to see. There's not very much access in here. This is one of those jobs that's easier to do without filming, but you know, we go on. I'm going to remove a few more up the top here. That gets easier to get reach from the top. And there's one more where the alternator belt tensioner was, which we'll show you in just a moment. It's almost off. There's just one more to remove. And there is just down here where the alternator belt tensioner is, like we have to remove the alternator belt tensioner. Yeah, we'll just get it off. Sorry about the elbow shot. There we go. That's loose now. And we'll just take it off and get the cover out. There we go. A bit more. Another lovely elbow shot for you. And there we go. It should almost be out now. And there we are. It's now loose. So we just lift the cover off and drop it down. The easiest way I find. There are a couple of cable clips holding the wiring loom that runs to the crankshaft position sensor. So we can pop these out nice and easily. There's one there and there's one slightly higher up. Again, sorry about the bad camera angle. I did try my best. And now that's the timing belt cover off, the lower part of it. And there we go, we'll just drop it out. And now here's a better look at all the 7mm. So there's two down the bottom here. One there, and then one slightly further up, and one in the middle there. And then there's a couple more on the top. That's the furthest one, and that's where all the bolts are. And now we're just going to quickly remove the crankshaft position sensors so they don't get damaged while we're doing this, in order to just make putting the belt on easier. To just buzz out is a 10mm, as I said earlier. And yeah, just buzz it out, drop it out, and put it nicely safely out of the way. Just tuck it out around the corner here. Because we don't want to get it damaged, we need to keep it nice and safe, because otherwise we've got to replace it. It makes more life more hassle. And now we're just going to remove the belt guide as well. So just pull it out, it just slides out around the corner here. Fairly straightforward. It just holds the belt in place and stops it from coming loose. And now we're going to start timing up the engine. So this is an 80mm we're using. And there's a little divot that I put an arrow pointing towards. We'll just turn that round until it lines up with a hole on the lower engine part here, the engine block. So we're almost there now. Just turn it round, and then once it gets there you can put a pin in. And keep it nice and secure. You may need to go back and forth just slightly and wiggle it around until we get it right. There we are. And that should be just about right there. And we'll pop a pin in. You can also use a drill bit for this. Once we get it lined up. There we go. And now I'll give you a closer look at it. In just a second. So let me grab the camera. There we go. And I'll give you a closer look. As you can see, that's it all lined up there. You can't really see very well, but there we are. And also the camshaft pulley is also lined up at the top here. And the fuel pump will be lined up as well. Which is just down here. So go pop a pin in just nice and simply. But like I said, you can use a drill bit as well. You can also put a pin in the fuel pump. There we go. Once I get it in the hole, just have to do a bit of a wiggle, a bit of a reach. There we go, that's now in. There we are. And that's all climbed up there. And obviously we also put one in down at the crank pulley, as you can see. And that just holds the engine in time. So we haven't got to worry about it moving while we take the belt off. Keeps everything nice and secure. That's what we want. There we go. That's all three pins in place, as you can see. And now we're going to take the belt tension off. This is a 30mm. Just crack it loose and undo it, and the belt tension will come off. There we go. And now we're going to remove the timing belt itself. Obviously make sure your pins are in place, your drills in place, and you don't knock them while you're doing this. Just keep it nice and secure. There we go. I am just finishing off, loosening it off now. There we go. And yeah, next step, remove the timing belt. I find it easy just to grab it by the top here. Some people say grab it by the tensioner pulley, but once you get it nice and loose, it will just slide off. Because as I said earlier, make sure we don't knock any of our pins while we're doing this. And there we are, that's the old timing belt off. And this one's fairly worn out. And now we're just going to get it off the bottom here. This is the trickiest part, I find. And just drop it out. There we are. And the bout's completely removed. And now we're going to finish off removing the tensioner pulley. So just buzz it out by the 30mm bolt. You just want to take it off. You need to lift it away because it does get stuck on a little pin. There we are, that's now coming loose. And we're also going to be replacing the idler pulley here, which is a 16mm, which is just at the bottom here. You can't really see it. Let me just adjust the camera. There we are. Yeah, this is a 16mm bolt, and we just want to break it loose. It's on a stud, so it's just a nut we're removing really. And I dropped the spanner, but it's broken loose now, so we can run it off. It's ideally get a timing kit that replaces all these pulleys because they can fail, and that will defeat the purpose of replacing the timing belt. So trying to spend a bit more and get a kit that's really got all the tensioners and all the pulleys in it, as well as a water pump. You don't want a water pump failure on you. That's now removed, and we're going to start removing the 7mm around the water pump. Again, these are fairly easy to remove. You will notice there's water starts dripping out the minute you start loosening it. So yeah, just work our way around the edge. And you can obviously adjust the ending up and down with the jack as you need. Obviously don't go too high or too low, but just make sure it stays supported at all times. But yeah, as you break these loose, you'll notice there's some coolant dripping out, so make sure you put a catch pan underneath to catch the coolant. You don't want that dripping anywhere or going down drains or anything, it's just really bad. So make sure to dispose of it responsibly, as I said earlier. And yeah, you can see there's a bit of drippage now. And yeah, there we are, we're just going to remove this. And just keep working our way around. There's 7 of these bolts in total. And yeah, we just need to work our way around and just break them all loose. And you can see more coolant coming out as we go along. So as I said, make sure we got a catch pan underneath it. And yeah, we just get them loose now, and then we're just going to quickly buzz them out with the old Sealy electric ratchet. There's a full video on this tool on the channel. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check that out too. And yeah, but as you can see, a lot more coolant is now coming out. There'd be a lot more if we hadn't drained the coolant system earlier. It just really floods out, so just easier to remove it like we did earlier, then let it all come out here. It's a lot easier to catch and control. And now we're going to go to the lower part and just get these last few out. Just run them all out. There we go, and one more left after this. And once we get that one out, the water pump will be removed. Just get the right angle on it, there we are. Just change the position. There's actually 2 more, I believe. And yeah, we just want to get these out and get them removed. Just be careful of your timing pins, don't want to knock them out. You can do this without timing pins, but I don't recommend it. You just have to mark things up. It's a lot easier with the timing pins, nothing moves, and you know everything's going to be in the right place, and we're not going to damage the engine when we start it all back up. So yeah, these pins are cheap and really affordable. There will be a video on them as well, coming soon. But like I said, you can also use drill bits, anything that fits in the hole really, and won't move and won't be bend or break, is what you can use. And now the water pump is almost out. Just have to quickly run this last bar fastener a bit further out. You're just a bit stuck. There we go. And now we can start on the reassembly phase. So the water pump comes with a metal gasket within this kit, and there's a little triangle shaped hole. There's 2 little triangle shaped holes in fact. And that just holds the bolt on in place and keeps the gasket in place so it doesn't move. You want to make sure you clean up the surface on the engine to make sure it's nice and clean and free of any burrs and any grease or anything. And you don't need to use any sealant with this as well. The gasket does it all, it's a crushed gasket, and we can pop it back into place and secure it down. There we go. And you just want to start these fasteners by hand. We don't want to cross thread anything at all. And then we're going to run it down by hand. This just keeps the gasket in place and make sure we don't have to risk misaligning the gasket and causing a leak. And yeah, just run it down by hand. There we go. And we'll put a second one at the top there. And I'll just speed things up so you haven't got to see all the boring and stuff where I just put all the bolts in. You just pop them all in and start them all by hand and get them down nice and flush. then we'll talk about the torque procedure for this water pump. So as you can see, there's 7 holes, and we've got to go in the order it shows on the picture on screen. This picture will also be available. If you want it, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to get it to you. And yeah, so we need to do this twice, so we need to follow the procedure we just saw. So yeah, and this is for, we torque down to 10 Nm, which is a very tight tool. So we'll start with bolt number 1, and just get it tightened down as far as possible. There we go. And then we'll move to bolt number 2. Again, if you do need the diagram, I will do my best to post it in a community post as well. But if you need it and it isn't on a community post, just drop me an email and I'll send it to you as well. That's bolt number 2. Now into bolt number 3. There we go. We'll go to bolt number 3 now. There we go. You get it nice and tight. Just tighten it down as far as possible. We're going to go do a second round on this as well. Now I'm going to move on to bolt number 4. There we go. And now we're going to move on to bolt number 5, which is just up here in the top corner by the crankshaft pulley. Let me just adjust the camera so you get a better view. And yeah, we keep work our way around these. So this is number 5. There we go. And then we'll move on to number 6 and then 7 after that. Yeah, I just show you this whole process so you can see how I do it. And this process is quite good. It means you don't get any leaks, which is very important. You don't want your water pump leaking. There we go. And then number 7. Just adjust the angle slightly. Again, it's a bit hard to reach. I have dropped the engine down slightly to make this a bit easier on myself. There we go. And because we've got longer arms, it makes this job a lot easier. I wasn't blessed with longer arms, but you know, we make it work. There we go. That's tightened down now. There we go. I'm going to go around the second time. The second time we don't need to move it as much, just snug them down even a bit tighter. We won't go them loose as you tighten the other ones down. So that's the first one done. Now on to number 2. Yeah, just repeat this step twice. So this is the second torquing down on number 3. Again, it's only 10 Nm, so it's not very tight at all. You don't over tighten these, so just be careful. Unfortunately, my torque wrench didn't go that low. There we go. That's number 5. And then number 6. Again, just snug it down. Don't need very much. Just sort of like a quarter turn extra afterwards. After the first pass. And then there's number 7. Got the camera out of the way. And yeah, you go back to number 7 and get a good position on it. And there we go. That is now your water pump fully installed back in the car. I'll just show you that little diagram again that I made. Again, if you need this diagram, let me know and I'll get it to you. And once you fit the water pump, you go to start putting some coolant in it just to check for any leaks. So you can move the washer pump filler out of the way. It will pop back up because it's a pain in the bum. But yeah, it's just got a little funnel in there. You're going to fill it up with some antifreeze or coolant, should I say. And yeah, just pop it in. And just fill it up. Just fill it up to the max mark and then it will drain down. That will help flush some of the air out of the system. We will bleed the system properly later in the video. But yeah, this just checks for any leaks in the water pump and the pipe that we removed earlier. And yeah, as you can see, it's going down very slowly. Check for any leaks down below. There wasn't any on this one, so I didn't need to show you. But if there is, just remove the water pump and retighten it. Now here are the 2 new pulleys we're going to fit in. There's the tensioner pulley with a little pin in it. Very handy little pin to keep hold of afterwards as well, which I can use it for. And there's the new idler pulley, which has a little cable tie around it we need to cut off. in a minute. Just be careful, two bearings that are held in by that cable tie. I know it's slightly off camera, but I've put the idler pulley on and I'm just tightening down the nut just by hand to start off with. And there we go, and you can see it's on, and then here comes the nut. It's in a bit of an awkward angle, I'm sorry about the camera angle, unfortunately it's one of those jobs that's hard to film. And there we are, that's going down nice and tight, just to make sure it spins freely before we move on. And now we're going to put the tensioner pulley on. Again, there's a little metal arm that it goes on. I'm just jacking the engine up to make my life a bit easier. Well, I dropped it down for the water pump. Just jack it up to make it nice and simple. And yeah, there's a little metal protrusion on the engine that there's little slot slides on and just holds the tensioner in tension. Which I'll show you in just a moment. It doesn't really hold it in tension, that's not quite the right saying, but it holds it so you can tension it. And there we go. Just tighten this down now. Just going to buzz it in by hand. You don't want to tighten it fully because we need to tighten it down fully when we set the tension. There we are. As you can see, there's a little metal divot that it sits on. And we'll sort that out in a second. There we go. Tried them out. I couldn't get a very good angle of filming the belt. So as you can see, here's where how the belt runs. And I'll just run you through that in just a second. As you can see, if you need that diagram, I will show it to you. But as you can see, I started by putting it over the crankshaft pulley at the bottom, and then went up over the idler pulley and over the camshaft, and then around the fuel pump, and then around the water pump, and then I slid it over the tensioner there, and then we'll pull the pin out, and that'll make it nice and tight. Well, not nice and tight, but it'll allow us to put tension on it. Just wiggle the little pin out. There we go. Now you can pull the pin out. There we go. Now we can start doing the tension. So what we want to do is use a 7mm Allen wrench, and what we want to do is a little metal tag on the tensioner that we need to get in the centre there, as you can see. Once it's about centred like that, we need to tighten down the tensioner all the way. Just nip it down with a spanner so it doesn't move too much. And the ideal thing is to keep it right in the centre of that little tab, sort of in line with that protrusion we spoke about earlier. And this is really the most important step of this whole timing belt change, making sure we get this in the right position with the right amount of tension. As you can see, the belt's quite tight, but you just want to make sure that that tab is lined up in the right place. And now we're going to turn the engine over twice, so I'm going to remove the pins. And so you split screen this, so one side is the top and one side is the bottom. We're not quite in line because I filmed them separately, so I actually turned the engine over 4 times. The crankshaft pulley over 4 times, which will give you 2 rotations of the camshaft. So yeah, you just want to turn it around. The exhaust strokes are very difficult. They do tend to stick. I have sped this up a bit, so you haven't got to watch me struggle all the way through. But once you turn the camshaft over twice, all the pins should line back up. And if it doesn't, then we need to check something. Also, if it binds up, we need to stop and restart as something's gone wrong. But normally, as long as you keep the pins in, nothing goes wrong. I need a bit of fine tuning just to get everything in the right place. In my experience, the main reason something won't line up properly is because of the tensioner. Just make sure that it's tightened down and the pin hasn't moved, that little notch we talked about earlier. If it has, then that's the main cause I found, so just re-tension it and then try again. Make sure you've obviously lined up all the pins first. But now we're going to torque down the 2 fasteners, so the 30mm gets torqued down to 30Nm on the tensioner pulley. Get it nice and torqued down so it doesn't move. And then we'll do the 37Nm on the idler pulley. So yeah. To get it up and tighten it down. There we go. Nice and tight. That's what we need. Now we can remove the pins. So there we have the fuel pump pin and the camshaft pin, and further down, once I get down there, the crankshaft pin. And we'll get that one removed. It's all good. Obviously double check, make sure everything's still in line. Make sure that belt tension hasn't moved at all before you start doing anything else. Also while you're down here, check for leaks before you put the covers back on. But there's no leaks, so you can see. And now we're going to put the belt guide back on, so it just hooks in and slides in place. This just stops the belt from moving and coming off. So yeah, just tighten down to 10mm. There we go. I just run it in nice and simply. There we go. Well, hopefully eventually I'll get it started. There we go. Make sure you put this back in. It's quite not overly important, but it's quite important. Don't want to leave any parts out that are meant to be there. And yeah, just tighten it down by hand, and then we'll finish it off with the ratchet in just a second. There we go. Get it nice and tight. And we're also going to put the crankshaft position sensor back in place. And it just lines up the little hole there. And hopefully make sure you remember to put this in. Otherwise you've got to take the timing cover back off, and it's a bit of a pain. There we go. And it just lines up there against the side of the crank pulley. There we go. Just tighten down the 10mm by hand at first, and then we'll run it in by hand and get it nice and tight with the ratchet. Again, this whole job can be done with hand tools. I use some electric tools to speed things up. Obviously, if you want a full list of the tools, as I said earlier in the video, they are available in the description down below. And if you find this video helpful, please subscribe and drop a like. If you've got any questions about anything I've done in this video so far, just drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer it for you. And yeah, now we've got that nice and tight. Well, nearly got it nice and tight, there we are. Just secure it down. I'm not sure of the spec on this, so I'm just going to get it nice and tight, as tight as I can get it without breaking anything. Now we're going to put the timing cover back in place, and obviously I showed you where the bolts were earlier. And they're all 7mm, so we just need to get them back in place and get them nice and secure. There we are. It just takes a little bit of wiggling and a bit of persuasion to get it in the right place. I highly recommend putting the lower timing cover back on before you put anything else back on. It just makes it easier and simpler. And yeah, okay, tighten these all down by hand. Obviously you always want to start your bolts by hand so you don't cross-thread anything. If you cross-thread the bolt down here, will be a right pain in the bum. And also you don't want it being loose, it might hit the timing belt and again defeat the purpose of this repair, which is making sure the timing belt doesn't snap and damage the engine. And there we go. We'll do this next one next. You'll normally use a little extension in a socket to do this. It just makes things easier on the fingers, especially on these smaller bolts. Remember, these are 7mm and they're quite fiddly, especially if you've got big hands. There we go. And that's going down fairly simply. And we'll use the ratchet to finish it off. And then we'll go on to the next ones. Once I hit the camera a bit. I promise no cameras were hurt in the making of this video. Now we're back at the top side. And yeah, we're going to do the few 7mm at the top here that we showed earlier. Again, once you're actually doing the job, they're fairly easy to spot. Just start them all by hand again. There we go. Try and get a good angle for you. It is quite difficult. There we are. Just adjust the camera a bit. There we are. You can see them a bit easier and a bit simpler. Just knock the camera over again. There we are. Adjust it all a bit more. There we are. They're all tightened down now. There's that one there, and that one in the middle there. Again, I'm doing my best to try and get you good angles. It doesn't always work. Now we can start putting the engine mount back in. So we've got little guide tabs there. We need to put the bolts in, lower bolts in, so we can get them in. And yeah, it's just a matter of getting them lined up and giving it a wiggle until it slots into place. It does sort of go over the top of the lower cover. So yeah, you can wiggle it into place and you should slide onto the little guide pins and make it fairly easy once you get in the right spot. Again, it takes a bit of wiggling and precision. There we go, and then we just start the lower bolts by hand. Again, just speed things up. These are 16 bolts again, just in case you've forgotten from earlier in the video. And yeah, we just tighten them down. by hand at first. You definitely don't want to cross-thread these because it'll be a right pain. There we are. And now we've got them all back in place. We're going to tighten it down to 60 millimeters. So we've got all four back in place. I just skip forward to save you a bit of time. There we go. And just tighten them all down to 60 millimeters. So that's 2 done. There are 4 in total. And there we go. That's the next one. I want to get the socket on it. There we are. Almost done there. And then the last one is just done now. There we are. And that's all this part of the engine mount torqued down. There we are. And now we're going to put the upper timing cover back on before we go any further. Best if we don't put it on now, we'll get block access to that middle bolt. And we don't want that. Again, we're going to start these by hand. There we go. Takes a bit of lining up and precision, but we will get it there in the end. There we go. And again, these are 7mm. So yeah, we just tighten them down now by hand. And then we'll come along with the ratchet and fully tighten them down so it's not loose. There we go. Back to that one up the top there. And the furthest one away, which is probably the most tricky one. Probably the trickiest part of the whole day, that one. I say that there's one more, slightly more tricky, what we'll talk about in a moment, and that's on the alternator tensioner, which is the third one, the lowest one down. There we go, just tighten it down with the ratchet now. And there we go, get it nice and tight. I'm going to reach down and do the last one in the far corner. That one wasn't quite right, so we're just going to make sure it's tightened down first. There we are. And I'll come back with the ratchet again. Again, they don't need to be overly tight. Just make sure they're snug down so they don't rattle and move. There we go. And now we're going to quickly remove these two T25s so we can put the bracket back in place and hook the wiring harness back in the right spot. So there we go. Just line them up with the holes and tighten them down. Yeah, you might want to make sure you start all these bolts by hand. You don't want to cross thread anything and strip it out. It's a real pain to replace these sort of things, especially these threaded inserts. They can be generally quite brittle, especially with the age of the car. This one is from 2011. So yeah, you just want to make sure you're careful with these, because getting a new timing cover can be a real difficult thing to get hold of. And we've got the cables back in place, and we'll put the pipes back in the right spot. Right, let's the timing cover back on. Now we can move on to putting the engine mount back in the right place. So I found the easiest way to get it lined up is to place the engine mount on the bracket that we just put back in, and just get the screws slightly tightened down. You don't need to be overly tight. And then drop the engine down if you've got it up, or lift the engine up if you've got it down. And just drop it down, and it sort of falls into the right place and lines up the bolt holes. And then you can remove the screws quickly, the bolts I say, the T50 bolts. And yeah, it's roughly at the right height then, which generally makes things a bit easier. We will need to drop the engine down a bit further, but we're just going to put the 4 E16 bolts back in the engine mount here. That bolts to the car. So just line them all up. And you can see here, just get them all started by hand before we tighten anything all the way down. And there we are. We're just going to drop the engine down a bit, and then we just need to wiggle it into the right place, just get it all lined up. You just need to push the engine into the right spot. There we go. And once it's sort of in the right spot, as you can see, you should catch on the few lugs we've got, and we can get a bolt in. And again, you want to start all these by hand. You don't want to cross thread anything. I don't know how many I said that in this video, but it's very important. There we are. Just push things in and line it up. There we go. Once you get one started, it's quite simple really. There we are. And then we'll put a second one in. And the third one goes in nice and simply after that, once you get these two outer ones in. It's definitely the easiest way I found to do it. If you put the middle one in first, it just makes things a bit more awkward of lining up the little pins. You can run these down by the ratchet quickly. You obviously can do this by hand. I'm just using the electric ratchet for time. And again, these are T50s, so they're quite good. Obviously, if you want to know what sockets I'm using, there is a link in the description. They're quite good sockets. There we go. And now it's going in. We're going to quickly run down these E16s. Again, you can't see one of them because it's slightly off camera. As you can see my ratchet just there. I'm going to get them all tightened down and we'll torque them down afterwards. There we go. And one more to go, which we need a slightly longer extension for. But I won't show you that. I'll just quickly move on to torquing them down to 60mm. Again, all of these are getting torqued down to 60mm, which is quite handy because it means you haven't got to adjust the torque wrench. Not always a problem, but you know, it just makes life feel a bit easier. I'm going to do all 4 of these, and then we're going to do the 250s down to the same spec. There we go. Just torque those down too. There, them ones are done. We'll move on to these ones and torque these down. There we go. Again, down to 60mm. There we are. That's one done. Just about. We'll move on to the second one. There we are. Just need a slightly longer ratchet extension for this. Just going to hit in the timing cover, and we don't want that affecting the torque spec. There we are, and one more to go. And there we go. Get this last one torqued down to spec. And just double check, make sure they're all the right torque setting. There we are. Now I'm going to buzz out the old crankshaft bolt and replace it with a new one. I'm also going to put the crankshaft pulley back on. So there we are, that's come out now. Again, there's an 18mm for this. I couldn't find a torque setting for this, so I'm just going to wallop it down and get it nice and tight with the impact gun. That seems to be the best device I could find anywhere. Thanks to the keyway on the crankshaft pulley, it's not going to move anywhere. My timing kit comes with a new crankshaft bolt, so I'm going to put that in now. And if you haven't got an impact gun, if you find a way of holding the crankshaft pulley tight and then tighten down the bolt as tight as you possibly can, that should do the job. But I'm going to use an impact gun. It hits fairly hard and it hasn't come loose at all as far as I can do. I've done a few of these now and this is the best way of doing it as far as I can tell. Just run it down and make sure it's nice and tight. There we go. And now we're going to quickly pop back in these last 2 wiring connectors that I forgot to do earlier. So there's wiring harness, just one there and one slightly higher up, and just pop them back in the home so they don't move and don't get in the way when we put the on about them. And while we're underneath the engine, we could quickly drop the jack out the way because we don't need it now the engine mounts back in. There we go. And now we're going to put in the new on-air belt tensioner. As you can see, there's the new one there. And the new one is here, nice and shiny. And it's got a nice unbroken end to it, which is quite nice. I'm also going to be putting a new on-air belt on. There we go. And yeah, so we're going to pop this in and pop the bolts in to get it lined up. And there we are, we're going to pop it in and tighten it down by hand. It goes in fairly straightforward. These are 10mm, remember, so not too difficult really. There we are. And now we've got it in the right place. I'm going to put the belt on. And the way the belt goes on is fairly straightforward. Just hook it over the crank pulley, then over the AC pulley, and then over the alternator belt, and then just quickly pull the pin. Unfortunately, it's really difficult to film, and I haven't got the best footage of this. You need to hook it over there, hook it over the AC pulley, which is just down there, and just lift it up and slide it over the alternator. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of me doing the top half of the engine, but as you can see, I've got the alternator running and the car running, and everything's running fine. That's good news. Now we can quickly bleed the coolant system. To do that, we need to remove the 2 air intake pipes on the other side. And then quickly, there's a little nozzle that we're going to be opening in just a moment to let some of the air out of the system. We just need to remove this other air intake pipe. There we go. And yeah, we just need to quickly loosen this nozzle later on. I'll show you that in just a second, but that's the nozzle we need to find. But before we do that, I'm just going to top it up with some more coolant. We want to make sure we've got plenty of coolant. Ideally, if you're doing this and you only haven't got a funnel like this, have two people. One person watching the coolant level and one person opening a little valve in a minute. But yeah, we can pop this in. This is one of those lovely no-spill funnels. They're really handy to have. And it also means you can bulk up on a lot of fluid. So we can quickly open this little valve. It's a bit like a strainer valve cap. There we go. Obviously I've got the engine running at this point as well. And we've built up to temperature. That's what we want to do. We have to do this a couple of times. But yeah, all we need to do is open this little cap, which is quite on there. And then you see nothing come out just at the moment. And then as I quickly jumble things around, the coolant will start coming out. A load of air come out of the system. And we need to repeat this at least twice. So as you can see, once it starts flowing like this, I'm going to put the cap back on. There we go. And then we'll top up the coolant level again. And then we'll go again. Once the engine's warmed up to temperature. And just double check, make sure there's no air in the system. And yeah, once you've done it a couple of times and you're confident there's no air in the system, you put the washer bottle back in place and put the cap back on. And let it come up to pressure and just double check it after about 15 minutes of running. And there we go. Once we get that back on, let it run while you're doing the. Yeah, you can see the engine's running. We're going to put the air intake pipes back on, and we can always bleed it out again by just removing these pipes if you need to. Just keep an eye on the coolant level. If you have any questions about this process, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. And yeah, keep an eye on that coolant level while you're doing this. I'm just going to quickly put the wheel arch guard cover back in while the engine's running and getting up to temperature. And so I'm quite close so I can double check they're not getting overheating or anything. Yeah, just pop these back pins in first, is the easiest way I found. So yeah, fight the wheel arch a bit. These are quite tricky and quite annoying. Yeah, just speed through this. Just get this back pin in first, is the easiest way I found to do it. Just push it in and clip it into place. Make sure the wheel arch is behind the cover here. There we are. Like that, and then just pop the pin in, and then we'll carry on doing the rest. There we are, there's another one there. And then another one up here. If you've lost any of these, now's a good time to replace them. And if you found this video helpful and informative, don't forget to drop me a like and subscribe if you're new. Any questions, don't forget to ask. And you put these T20s back in now. There we go. And once this is back in, and we put the wheel back on and check the coolant level the final time. We have successfully changed the water pump and timing belt on this Mk1 Citroen C4 Grand Picasso with a 1.6 diesel engine. I hope you found this video helpful. Any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful or entertaining, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps both the channel and me out. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I post 2 videos a week, so by subscribing, you'll never miss a thing. Got any questions or suggestions? Drop a comment down below, and I'll do my best to reply to everyone. Here at Dobby Repairs, we're all about helping you learn how to work on your vehicle safely and showing you don't need to spend a fortune on tools to get the job done. Want to support the channel further? Become a member, starting at just 99p. Members get perks like early access to videos and more exclusive content. Keep fixing, and I'll see you in the next one.